And welcome to Universal TV Africa. My name is Alice Zakaribo. You can also call me Ajebo. On this special feature, we feature a lot of Nigerians in diaspora. On the show, I'll be featuring someone. His name is Opatuma David Otsujo. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so David, how does it feel to be the first Nigeria in nearly 40 years to graduate from MGIMO University?
Well, I would say it feels riveting. It's encouraging, it's motivating, but above all, it's a new sense of responsibility.
Okay.
Because to be able to follow in the footsteps of people like Bilkisu Yusuf was like the last person to graduate from there. She was a prominent journalist from Nigeria and graduated from there in 1985. You know, to follow in such footsteps and to pioneer the emergence of new generation leaders from Africa who are able to take charge of global platforms and narratives and create change. It's a new sense of pride, it's a new sense of responsibility, but above all, I feel grateful for the opportunity to have been able to redefine certain aspects of Nigeria's identity globally.
Okay, so sorry, I'll have to take you back a little bit from the beginning. What inspired your journey into international development and diplomacy?
So I have been one person who grew up within certain contexts that weren't so conducive for holistic development of young people.
Okay.
And that always drove me into the pursuit of more. And when I find something better for myself, I had always been one person to carry my group or my community or my village along. So I start with my friends, I start with communities I'm part of, churches and other associations I'm part of. So the journey into international development started first from community development.
Okay.
I had worked in numerous capacities before even venturing into international space. But before that,
In Nigeria?
In Nigeria, absolutely,
Okay.
in Jos. Primarily,
Nice.
yes.
Okay.
I was part of the YMCA, the Young Men's Christian Association. I was part of the Nigerian Red Cross. I was part of the Faith-Based AIDS Awareness Initiative. I'd done so many work in communities around SRHR and even worked as an independent monitor for the World Health Organization to carry out enumerations for even search for common ground, Nigeria, Women Without Walls Initiative, so many. But all of these things were done on the basis of volunteering and taking responsibility for communities that I belong in and to see ways of contributing to it. Then moving beyond that, I got affiliations with international platforms and contexts that were also volunteer-based. So these were platforms for cross-generational and cross-cultural learning and sharing of best practices, and also to see how to replicate things that work within context across the world. So me venturing into international development is just a step beyond, because international development basically is just where different developments come to converge, basically. So it's just me putting the little efforts I've been able to amass and the traction I've been able to build within certain local contexts on the global narrative plane. So that is the
Okay, so David, amongst all the institutions we have, amongst all the institutes in Russia, why MGIMO?
So there's this thing I would always ask when I'm asked why a particular thing. I'll be like, why not that? So firstly, I would mention where my journey with Russia started, which was in 2019. So it was the Friends for Leadership program. And I had an initiative then that was known as Friends Pro Earth. So it was a sustainable project which focused on climate, waste transformation, and a lot of eco-friendly agricultural projects within context. So where we tried to support even local farmers with certain levels of exports or maximization education that allows them to understand some of the benefits, the pockets of benefits that they stand to benefit from government, even when it comes to tax subsidies and a lot of things. So we were doing a lot of things within that, right? And also waste transformation, where we taught upcycling, recycling, and a lot of things.
Okay.
So there was an opportunity to go to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum in 2019 under the Friends for Leadership platform, because then I was part of the Social Innovation Warehouse in Buenos Aires in Argentina. And I started that, and we needed to just put some of our projects that were developed within the part for application. So we did, and I was selected to come for the New Generation program in 2019. So I was there, I spoke on the initiatives we were doing back in Jos, back in Nigeria, and after that I was re-invited to the Eastern Economic Forum in September of the same year. So there I didn't go as just a speaker, I was invited to moderate a high-level panel on the roles of young people in sustainable urban development. So I was coming as someone who didn't, Jos is still developing, we understand this, and based on some of the projects we were able to do, we were able to be recognized, to be invited to moderate such a session. And when we went there, moderated this, and I found ways of collaboration. And one of the ways that came out of that was for them to offer me my first scholarship to study, which came in 2020. But COVID also came in 2020, so we couldn't do anything till 2021. The end of 2021 was when I went to Russia as a student in December for my first master's program. And by the time we were done with my program, I already built traction within the youth leadership platform, especially as it relates to Russia Africa, because I was recognized as a regional expert within different platforms. And one of those platforms was the Russia Africa Forum, What is Next? So this forum was established on the base of the university, MGIMO, which is where I just recently graduated from. And this is one of the two universities that is under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, not under the Ministry of Education, because it's an institute that gives specialized training to diplomats, to public office holders from all around the world. But in the last 40 years, no one from Africa. So there was a need to reopen and reestablish the ties, the diplomatic ties, when it comes to policy coherence, curriculum coherence, and to see how to push for certain levels of cross regional trainings. And so 20 people were accepted for the first intake in 2023. And 19 of those people were from other African countries, some like the Gambia, Kenya, and other countries. So I was the only one from Nigeria, and I was accepted to take part in that program. So I was reached out to, I sent in an application, I had my interview, and based on the experience and work I already was putting in with them and the Russia Africa Forum, What is Next, I was offered the tuition waiver to study within that university. And after that, it has now given rise to even more people to join. And that is the foremost institute for international relations in Russia, one of the top in the world. And it was really, that's the choice.
From what you just said, you already have your first degree.
I actually have two.
And this is your second degree. So what motivated you to go for your second degree, and why international relations?
So the first motivating factor is continuous learning. So the moment you stop learning, you start dying as an individual. And in a world that is filled with so much information, and in the world that is filled with so much post-truth, and you need to understand that you need to identify and verify the sources of the information you consume as a person. Otherwise, you would have information that will cause you more harm than good. And sometimes you also have to identify people that have the track record of the learning and knowledge you want to possess and imbibe. And that is one of the driving factors for me. So if I need to learn, if I need to know a lot of things, and in a world that has so much information out there, everyone can post anything and it will be information. So also misinformation is also one information aspect that's out there. So it's only became right for me to seek places and platforms that provides you with the kind of information that is informative, that is educating, and not destructive, that can also contribute to the holistic development. So the spiritual, the mind and physical development of a person, especially as a young person who intends to take charge, creates change, and creates not just change but pathways for continuous change that is led by young people and the generations coming before. So that's just the basis, because the level of our incompetencies will serve as the foundation and basis of the future and the generations coming after us. So if we do not raise the bar high for them, the highest point or the lowest points that we decide to just bask in will serve as the bedrock for the development of the next generation, which is not a good sight if you're really going to look at it very critically. So our complacencies at this level will be what serves as the culture for the next generation. So it's just to push the barriers, to push the boundaries, and make sure we have heightened expectations.
Okay. So you mentioned in this degree, it has to do with representation. So I have this question. Could you expand on what that means to you in the context of global diplomacy?
Thank you. So talking about representation, I focus on the form of diplomacy that is referred to as people diplomacy.
Okay.
So it is one that is not the conventional form of diplomacy. Yes, it is an aspect of development diplomacy or public diplomacy, but people-to-people diplomacy is one that allows you be relevant within the global spectrum of things, allows you to contribute your voice to global policies, and doesn't allow just the select few to make all the decisions and everything else. So it is the decentralization of diplomatic processes, and to also demystify what it takes or what it is for certain things to be diplomatic in quotes, because beyond everything else, diplomacy in its own self is representation. So the selection of people who are trained in cross-cultural dialogues, mutual understanding, they have heightened levels of international intelligibility, who are able to amass the knowledge, the experience, the expectations and interest of a people and communicate same to a foreign government in a bid to seek win-win situations, common ground. So it's not like a zero-sum game, sort of. So it's basically me trying to represent, firstly, the community I am from, secondly, the country whose passport I bear, and thirdly, myself. So it's exactly in that format. Why myself coming last is because I definitely understand that I'm not just representing these, I'm also representing the things that will come from me, my children, my grandchildren, and their own children and grandchildren. So I become the progenitor of some of these legacies that I intend to see in fruition. And I've always been guided also by the Sustainable Development Goals, and of course we understand that the idea of sustainability is your ability to meet today's needs without undermining the prospects of the future generations to meet theirs. So representation helps me carry the emblem of the places I come from, the country I am part of and represent, and even the future that is yet to come. So that is basically the simplest way I can represent that, and I believe every one of us in our own little way can also practice such and make sure we are not just living for ourselves, because life is not so lackadaisical. We cannot treat it with such levity as though no one or nothing else matters. It is our responsibility to take responsibility for ourselves, for our communities, and the people around us, and to represent them well. So when you're out there, you're first and foremost an ambassador of your country and of yourself and of your community. So basically, representation is in the core of everything we do.
Okay. So, David, MGIMO has played a significant role, a vital role in Russia's engagements with Africans. How would you describe the current state of Russia's African relations?
Okay, so I will first give a disclaimer that my representations are not the representation of the Russia's foreign policy or standpoint. Absolutely not. What I'm going to say is basically from my experiences and engagements over the years within these platforms, right? And one thing I can say very keenly, and if I'm going to borrow the words of His Excellency Sergei Lavrov, the Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation, he said Africa is the continent of the future. And if Africa is the continent of the future, and their foreign policy document is revised as of March in 2023 to convey the concept of fairness, equity, equality, and dealing with new partners on the basis of mutual respect, mutual interests, win-win situations, you understand that, yes, that is what the projection is. But beyond all of these things, every country that comes to Africa will come to Africa with their own interest at heart. No one is coming as a savior for the African continent. So, but the thing is this, sometimes we need certain levels of friendship to be able to support us to find alternatives to narratives that do not seem to benefit us for a lengthier period of time or sustainably. So, what I see the new pedestal is with the friendship and relations between Russia and Africa is the provision of alternatives, not substitution, alternatives, because we are also not seeking to find new slave masters, for example. We are just seeking to find alternatives to development. Then we compare propositions and choose which partner in what sphere is better suited to represent and help us achieve our own interests as an African continent and as African people. Because the entire world has plans for Africa. But Africans do not have any plans for the world. We barely even have plans for ourselves. So we understand the African Union proposed the Agenda 2063. You understand the Africa that self-governs, the Africa we want, that is not undermined by the tendencies and prospects of other countries and their interests about us. But we having our own plans, we working on our own plans and creating sustainable patterns to sustain whatever development we have within Africa so that Africa can drive its own development and growth, right? And when we are looking to achieve that, we need to find partners that are able to help us in that achievement. Is Russia one of those partners? Absolutely so. Can the US, the UK, France, and other countries be partners in that regard? Absolutely. But we have to be better negotiators so that we do not go as beggars who always go with Korea, our bowls of begging, asking for alms all the time. No, we have things that they need, they have things that we want, and all we need to do is find points of convergence that allows us benefit from every of these interaction and partnership without changing ourselves or without letting ourselves lose dignity, not letting ourselves lose resources, not letting ourselves lose personnel. Because currently, even the World Health Organization has classified some countries in Africa as red zones, so that doctors from those places do not travel outside the country to go work in health systems. Now, you see the ironical thing with that is that now we are losing so much doctors to foreign health markets, and our people are falling ill and traveling to the countries where our doctors are, and mostly will still be treated by our doctors who have been specialized in those places.
Exactly.
So it's you're stealing from Peter and giving to Paul. So we just need to understand how best to find partners that help us grow, find partners that help us develop without any form of undermining or compromise.
So you've been actively involved in cultural and public diplomacy. Why do you think people-to-people connections are so important in international relations?
So if we are to go back to the Peace of Westphalia, for example, and we understand that before countries were recognized as sovereign and given the right and ability to dictate what happens within their territory and not allow for any foreign incursion without having consequences, we need to understand that everything had been on the basis of how people interact. Kingdoms have merged because two kings are friends, or because two kingdoms decide to say, okay, let's get married. So they get married and kingdoms merge. And when the kingdoms merge, now they now decide to start finding, okay, who will be king, who will be maybe mayor or something of that nature. But you see, the goal or the idea behind such is that we understand beyond everything that the heart of connection and development is still people. It's still, so people are the crux of it. They are the nucleus of everything. They are the nexus of everything. Every civilization is predicated on people. Every development, everything is based and predicated on people. So people need to know better first, need to understand how to relate better with other people. Not just people from your clan, not just people from your tribe, not just people from your state, not just people from your region or country, but relate with. That is why it is very important for us to also learn concepts of cross-cultural dialogue or international relations. Shouldn't just be, I mean, we should learn languages. I mean, averagely in Nigeria, we have one of the most we have more languages in Nigeria than some countries have, than some continents have put together. And a lot of us do not know more than 3, maybe 2. For some that speak English, some don't. And if we're not able to relate well within our own local context, how much more do we want to relate well with other people out there? So the world, by the emergence of technology, has become a digital village. Everyone is connected. People are the heart of everything. And even the incursion of AI that we are suffering and complaining about, the goal of it now is to find how to make it more human. That is why for those who do research and use AI for their research, what they try to do afterwards is humanize. People are still the core of everything. People will still remain the core of everything. And until people are brought into the consideration of everything, be it decisions on sanctions, decisions on war, decisions on peace and safety, decisions on justice, until people, and not just talking about the elites, the masses, we're talking about the common man, we're talking about all of these aspects, like focus on people. And you remember I tried to tell you how we need to also demystify the concept of diplomacy being just for the elites, and also bring people from different walks of life into the discussion people. So basically people are the driving force for every aspect of diplomacy at any level. It used to be from kings within local contexts. They conquer these ones, they take the people, because the people were also regarded as spoils of war during those times. You know, even during hunter and gatherer societies, when you need belts from me, for example, because I have cows and you want the milk or you want the skin from the cow, then what you do is you give me a wife, so and then you get the, so it's like you barter it. Exactly. And people have always been in this. So that had always been it. If we look at the emergence from all of that till now,
No.
it's still people.
Mhm.
It's still people. And that's why even in diplomatic palace,
Mhm.
you understand a lot of people say, oh, now we can use AI to do translation from one language to another. You don't need people for interpretation.
Mhm.
But that is absolutely wrong. Because there are certain contexts that machine cannot learn. There are certain traditions, there are certain values that machines cannot learn and interpret. For example, so there are certain cultures that what you do in English that is acceptable, if you do it in that context or in that culture, it is absolutely insulting and abhorring to the recipients of it. So it will still boil down to people who have been able to understand the process well enough to apply it best way they can, with the understanding of not just what's people. Okay, so basically, as I conclude this, there's a golden rule, right? Where you do unto others what you want done to yourself, right? But people do not realize that the thing we focus on, or we should focus on, in the is the platinum rule, which is, you don't do to me what you will do to yourself, or what you'd want done to you. You will do to me what I want done to me. You understand? So it's, you treat people how they want to be treated, not necessarily how you would want to be treated. Yes, so you see, at that level, we understand that there's a certain level of stream of consciousness that has to come into play, and where we're able to have empathy, to understand how best to relate with people, to make them feel respected, to make them feel seen, because people can forget what you say or do, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. And that's why today we see some of the countries that are still forming strongest alliance, check, their presidents are friends.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
Okay, so lastly, David, do you see growing interest among African youths in international policy and diplomacy? If yes, how can it be better supported? Like, how can it be better supported? Okay,
growing interest in international policy, absolutely no.
No?
But yes, so this is, a lot of young people are not interested in policy.
You think so?
I tell you why. A lot of us are currently more interested in international practice, international travels, tourism, education. But when it comes to policy, no, not so much. How can I say we are not so much interested in policy? Policies are what formulates the practice that we see. How many young people today do we have going into policy reviews? How many young people do we have today creating or maybe carrying out research projects that focuses on policy coherence, policy suggestions and recommend? There are a lot of people doing it, absolutely, but definitely not enough. Because I can tell you today that there are lots of policies that have been in place that we don't even know are in place. As young people, we don't, and sometimes we try to go against the status quo without knowing what the policies have been on ground for the long. So when it comes to travels, young people are eager to travel. When it comes to educational tourism or just cultural tourism, and all, absolutely, we try to benefit from formed policies. But do we try to make it better? Do we try to make it more youth-friendly? Do we try to make it more accessible to certain communities? I don't think we do enough with that regard, because I know I've seen a lot of people, a lot of young people that do not create even platforms for other young people to have the exposure and the opportunities they have, right? So I've implemented a couple of projects that until recently allowed you to travel using the scholarship of that once. So it's only for people from 25 to 35 who are able to use it once. And then you send it to the same young people who have been part. Recommend one person to take part in this. And you go and check the form, and they are submitting their names. And so you understand, and they come and say, oh, please, if there's anything you can do, no, the last time I missed 2 days, so it's, that is some of the things we have when it comes to dealing with ourselves as young people.
Yeah.
We want to monopolize the opportunities because we feel like if we share this, other young people come at par with us. And it's not what we should focus on, because the policy, like I'm using the program I'm talking about, states 25 to 35, you can use only once. Some will say, oh, I just passed, and they don't send any other person until the deadline passes, because one, they want to still be the only people who have had that experience and want to be the only person to glean from that. So it's more or less like, as young people, when so many young people have what we have, we feel like it waters down what we have. So yes, international policy does not really interest a lot of young people, but being on the international stage to talk about, coming from underdeveloped areas and all, is quite the order of the day to a very large extent. But I think it's high time for young people to focus a little bit on policy. They should go into policy research, position papers, and all of these things require actual study and mastery of frameworks that are already available. Then you are able to now focus on certain levels of newer suggestions or recommendations to better improve some of these things. And also one aspect of the one aspect we must also ensure as young people is that sometimes we shouldn't clamor for the newness of things, because sometimes the old haven't been implemented yet. So let us understand what hasn't been implemented, what isn't working, and try to see how best we can implement it, or remind those that are at the helm of affairs about these implementations before. And another thing, we remember the Not Too Young to Run bill?
Yes.
So how many young people have we seen in politics till today?
Is it still existing?
No, absolutely. It was signed into law, absolutely. But the thing is this: there are certain platforms and there are certain situations that have been, except you're a young person who either came from generational money or you've amassed wealth that's the politics within certain climes are too expensive for young people to be able to afford. So it's still boiling down to policies. So how do we get to implement certain things that allows for more representation of young people? How many institutions do we know currently that when you see the youth leader of these institutions, they are way beyond the age range of young people? So that's why policies do not really interest us as much, because if it does, we will insist on some of these things to be revisited and to be reviewed to favor the actual people. That's what I basically think.
Okay, so I initially said it's the last, but this is very, very important. So you can just briefly tell us, what advice do you have for young Africans aspiring to contribute meaningfully on the global stage? Briefly.
So, firstly, for young people aspiring to contribute globally, be relevant locally. If you do not have what you contribute locally, there's nothing you can go to contribute globally. Because we all understand that charity begins at home. So if you're known for nothing at home, if you do not do anything at home, is it globally where everyone is coming with their A game to compete that you will go and start learning some of these things? So you need to have certain entry behaviors or certain entry experiences and expertise so that you do not come to the table without anything to share. Because some people say if you're not contributing, or if you're not contributing to what is being shared on the table, then probably you're also on the menu. And that's what young people need to understand. Find your niche. Become an expert. Become a specialist in that thing. Commit yourself to learning and commit yourself to mastery before you seek the validation and audience that waits internationally. Because when you're on certain platforms, sometimes some platforms will break you for life if you go there or access it unprepared. It happens a lot to a lot of people. So that is why my advice to young people is learn as much as you can, be an expert as soon as you can, and as quick as you can in certain field. Then when you feel you're ready, and when you're ready, you wouldn't be the one to tell yourself. Your situation, your community, your context and friends will be the one to tell you, because it will be evident in everything else you do, and that will be something to launch you. So that is what I think. Yeah.
Thank you for coming around, and then congratulations once more.
Thank you very much.
It's so good to have you around, and we're still watching Universal TV Africa, and we've come to the end of the show. See you some other time. I am Alice Zachary, but you can still call me Ajebo. Thank you for watching.